When Frank Fritz, beloved star of American Pickers, passed away, fans mourned the end of an era. But what happened next stunned everyone, even the police. Hidden behind the rusted doors of his private garage wasn't just a legendary collection of vintage cars. It was a secret that could rewrite automotive history. A car so rare, so mysterious, it shouldn't even exist. No VIN, no records, just a brass tag and a haunting handwritten note. I left behind everything there. Was it a forgotten prototype? A government cover-up? Or something else entirely? What Frank hid from the world is now the center of a high-stakes mystery. You won't believe what they found when they finally opened that garage. This is the discovery no one saw coming. Frank Fritz was not your typical collector. He wasn't chasing fame, money, or social media clout. What he was after was meaning. Hidden stories, machines that had been abandoned by time. His love for history, especially American automotive history, was evident in every episode of American Pickers. But even that didn't reveal the full extent of his passion. For Frank, it wasn't just about the find. It was about the rescue, about breathing new life into what others had left for dead. Behind the scenes, Frank's private garage in Iowa became a sanctuary. Not a showroom with red carpets and velvet ropes, but a time capsule of vehicles, each with its own tale. A 1956 Chevrolet Bear, known for its clean lines and distinctive tail fins. A 1967 Ford Fairlane GT 390, which he purchased for $7,000 and restored himself, investing another $4,000 into its rebirth. Alongside his longtime co-host Mike Wolfe, Frank acquired a fully optioned 1960 Cadillac Fleetwood, a symbol of American luxury. He wasn't afraid to spend big when something special came along. Two 1954 Nash Healey sports cars, purchased together for $46,000. A 1914 Mertz cycle car, a rare three-wheeler worth about $35,000, and perhaps the crown jewel, a 1947 Cisitalia Nuvolari Spider, a lightweight Italian marvel valued at over $500,000. What made Frank Fritz's collection truly unique wasn't the price tags attached to his cars. It was the soul behind each one. These weren't just machines to him. They were memories, stories frozen in steel and chrome. Every vehicle in his garage had a narrative, and Frank knew them all by heart. Whether it was a rust-covered gem pulled from a forgotten barn, a thrilling last-second win on an online auction, or a car he had shipped across states after hearing its backstory, Frank could recount every detail. Where it came from, why it mattered, what made it worth saving. He didn't collect for status. He collected to preserve history, to give life back to things others had given up on. Unlike many modern collectors, Frank never turned his passion into a brand. He never paraded his finds on flashy Instagram reels or turned his garage into a tourist destination. Instead, he kept his sanctuary private. Tucked away in Iowa, it was a quiet space filled with grease-stained tools, dust-covered shelves, and walls echoing with reverence. Friends say Frank could vanish inside that garage for hours, tinkering with old parts, organizing his growing inventory, or simply sitting in silence with the cars that spoke to him most. In a world obsessed with sharing every moment, Frank chose privacy. In that deliberate silence, he protected something priceless: the dignity of forgotten things. As the years went on, Frank grew more reclusive. By 2020, he had quietly exited American Pickers, citing back surgery and health issues. Many assumed he'd return, but he never did. Behind the scenes, his health was in decline, and he stopped taking calls, stopped posting updates, and rarely left his home. Yet even as his condition worsened, his passion remained. He continued to acquire vehicles, some through trusted intermediaries, others bought sight unseen. It wasn't carelessness, it was instinct. Decades of experience told him what was worth saving. One of Frank Fritz's final and most cryptic acquisitions was a vehicle that puzzled even the most seasoned car enthusiasts. It wasn't flashy. It didn't gleam under the sun. There was no polished chrome, no roaring engine to turn heads, no sleek muscle car silhouette. Instead, it sat quietly, worn and dusty, a relic of uncertain origin. To the average passerby, it looked like little more than an old, odd-shaped frame, unremarkable at best, confusing at worst. Its body was coated in faded paint, dull and patchy in places, as though time itself had tried to erase it. There were no clear manufacturer markings, no badging, no model number. It didn't fit any recognizable profile of classic American cars. No fins, no bold grills, no telltale styling cues of any particular decade. It was simply different. One day, a neighbor noticed Frank wheeling the unusual vehicle into his garage. Curious, they asked about the car, expecting a simple reply. Frank, known for being direct yet mysteriously poetic, only said 5 words: "It's older than you think." With that, he closed the garage door, and the car disappeared from view, unseen by anyone else from that moment forward. That cryptic comment stuck with the neighbor for years. Fast forward to after Frank's death. Legal proceedings began to catalog his estate, including his now infamous garage in Iowa, a space long sealed and untouched by outsiders. Under court order, estate attorneys and investigators were finally given access. They expected a rare collection, certainly. Frank was known to have an extraordinary taste for antique machines. But what greeted them went beyond even the most ambitious speculations. The moment the garage doors creaked open, a cloud of dust billowed into the light, carrying with it the weight of years, and something else, a presence, a legacy, the kind you feel more than you see. Inside, 8 vehicles were neatly arranged, not haphazard, not cluttered, just precision, like a museum frozen in time. In the front stood the turquoise 1956 Chevrolet Bear, its bodywork still proudly intact. Next to it was the sleek, powerful 1967 Fairlane GT 390, a car Frank had lovingly restored. Tucked into the corner was the polished Cadillac Fleetwood, all elegance and chrome. These were known entities, documented classics. But then, there was it, the anomaly. Positioned sideways near the very back of the garage, covered by a gray tarp stained with decades of oil and grime, was the vehicle that would throw the entire estate into a tailspin of mystery and speculation. When investigators pulled back the tarp, what they found underneath was shocking. It was unmistakably shaped like a Corvette, yet different in nearly every way. Its stance was lower, more menacing. The front end dipped sharply, almost as if it were designed to slice through the air at breakneck speeds. The rear flared wide, far beyond the proportions of a typical production model. The body was made of fiberglass, suggesting something custom or experimental. The real shock came when they checked for a VIN, the standard vehicle identification number. It wasn't where it should have been. Instead, riveted directly onto the firewall was a small brass plate. The inscription, though faded, could still be made out. A strange sequence of numbers, completely disconnected from any official General Motors, GM registry. And beneath those numbers were 3 chilling words: experimental use only. This wasn't just a rare car. This was something unknown. Later, a local mechanic and vintage racing expert was brought in to assess the find. After careful inspection, he gave his verdict. This looks like a 1963 Grand Sport Corvette. But that couldn't be. Only 5 Grand Sports were ever officially produced by GM, all for racing purposes. The program was shut down early, and all 5 cars have been accounted for, documented, preserved, and known to the collector community. So what was this doing in Frank Fritz's garage? Had Frank discovered a 6th Grand Sport? A prototype never recorded? A secret build hidden away by rogue engineers? Or was it a brilliant replica created with factory molds and parts intended to fool even the experts? No one knew. But one thing became clear. Frank knew exactly what he had. And for reasons he never revealed, he kept it a secret until the very end. Above the workbench, barely visible through grime and time, was a yellowed handwritten note. It read, "I left behind everything there." That single note changed everything. What had first appeared to be a simple farewell, perhaps sentimental, poetic, took on a whole new meaning once the mysterious Corvette-like vehicle was uncovered. Taped above Frank's old workbench, the yellowed paper bore only a few handwritten words. "I left behind everything there." It wasn't just a goodbye. It felt like a message, a riddle. A carefully placed breadcrumb left by a man who had spent his life chasing mysteries, and perhaps creating one of his own. Suddenly, speculation erupted in every direction. Some whispered that Frank Fritz had acquired the mysterious car in the early 2000s through a back-channel deal with a retired General Motors engineer. The story went that the engineer had access to parts, blueprints, or even full prototype builds that never saw the light of day. Others believed Frank had bought it at an estate sale in Flint, Michigan, a city steeped in GM's manufacturing legacy and secrets. Both theories had something in common. They placed Frank right at the edge of automotive folklore, inches from the legends that most collectors only dream of touching. Among the most popular theories was the idea that the car was one of the long-rumored mule cars. These were test vehicles allegedly built in tandem with the original 1963 Grand Sport Corvettes, but never released, never documented. Created in secret. Hidden away. Some believed these cars were designed for experimental use only, to test body shapes, suspension systems, or high-performance engines for racing models that would never officially enter production. Then there was the wilder story, that Frank's car was a one-of-a-kind, a ghost built by rogue engineers inside GM, using the original molds, perhaps even in off hours or under-the-table operations. A car crafted by insiders, never registered, and buried deep inside the quiet corners of industrial America until Frank found it. But no matter which theory you believed, one truth was undeniable. Frank Fritz knew. He knew exactly what he had tucked away in the back of that garage. And yet, he told no one. Not a mention in interviews, not a photograph in Facebook posts, not even a passing comment to close friends or fellow collectors. For a man who had spent years on television, sharing roadside finds and historic gems, this one was different. It was protected, hidden, treated with the kind of reverence that suggested it wasn't just rare, it was sacred. When word of the car leaked, it caused an immediate explosion in the automotive world. Corvette forums lit up. Historians scoured archived documents, comparing angles, fenders, and chassis curves to known prototypes. Vintage racing communities posted blown-up images of the firewall tag, trying to decipher the faded serial numbers. Theories flew like sparks. GM refused to comment publicly, but one anonymous insider was quoted as saying, "More Grand Sports may have been built than we'll ever admit." That only added fuel to the fire. Soon, high-profile collectors began reaching out. Offers came in. big ones. Museums wanted to preserve it. Private buyers wanted to own it. One international collector even offered what sources called a blank check. Any price, no questions asked. But the estate didn't sell. The car remains where Frank left it. Unverified, untouched, unknown. And Frank? He never said a word, not a whisper. As if the greatest find of his life wasn't meant for the world to see. Not yet. Not in interviews. Not on American Pickers. Not to friends. Not even a hint. There was never a mention. Never a casual slip. Never even a knowing smile that could have clued anyone in. For a man who made a living uncovering secrets, Frank Fritz took this one to the grave. It was as if he understood something the rest of us often forget, that not every treasure needs an audience. Some things don't need to be placed in a museum or posted on social media. Some things just need to be kept safe. That's what made Frank Fritz so profoundly different from most collectors. He didn't chase applause. He didn't hoard for attention. He didn't stack value to inflate his ego. He collected with care, with intention, and most of all, with respect. His passion wasn't for the limelight, but for the forgotten. He didn't see old cars as obsolete machines. He saw them as artifacts, as pieces of history that told stories, quiet ones, powerful ones, worth preserving. And maybe that's why he hid that mysterious Corvette-like prototype away. Not as a trophy, not as leverage, but as something sacred, something meant to be protected. Because sometimes, the rarest, most valuable things don't belong in glass cases. They belong behind locked garage doors, covered in dust, waiting for the right person to understand them. Long after the estate was settled, and everything was inventoried and cataloged, that one car, the anomaly, remained where Frank had left it. Unmoved, unverified, untouched. Parked in silence, just as he'd intended. And maybe that's exactly how it should be. Whether it's truly a lost Grand Sport Corvette, an experimental prototype, or the most perfect replica ever constructed, the mystery surrounding it is part of its power. Its identity is a question mark, and that question mark echoes everything Frank believed in. The thrill of the unknown, the beauty in what others overlook, the reverence for things that don't quite fit into the official story. We may never know the car's true origin. We may never confirm the whispers, the theories, or the documents that may or may not exist in some forgotten GM file cabinet. But we do know what it stands for. The soul of a man who didn't need to be famous to be unforgettable. A man who lived for the discovery, not the recognition. A man who understood that silence, too, can be powerful. In the end, Frank Fritz left behind more than just rare classic cars. He left behind a legacy of curiosity, a legacy of respect for forgotten things, a legacy of mystery. And in doing so, he reminded us of something truly rare, that the greatest finds aren't always the ones we can explain. Sometimes, they're the ones we can't. So now it's your turn. What do you think Frank was really trying to say? Let us know in the comments below. And if this mystery moved you like it did us, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories and forgotten treasures. Because sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to be remembered. Thanks for watching.